The A element in CSS. The A element is used to make a link, and it is accompanied with the A colon link, A colon visited, A colon hover, and A colon active in CSS. Now we don't have to write all of this. In fact, the only one I use is A hover, but I'll show you everything and then you do what you like. So what each of these stand for is the following. A link is the unvisited link. So imagine that you have a word that is supposed to be a link to another page. Let's say the word MSU. It's supposed to link to the homepage of MSU. A link is unvisited link. It means that it hasn't been clicked yet. It has a certain color when it hasn't been clicked yet, when it hasn't been visited yet. A visited means that link has been clicked and the page has been visited already, so it has a different color. So in this case, it's an example where the A link is red, the A visited is green. The A hover is when we hover over the word. So when we hover over the word MSU, we want it to change from blue to, or there you go, from green to blue, for example. A active is the selected link, which is the moment of clicking. So when the mouse is down, when we are in the moment of clicking, we want the color to change to maroon, for example. As I said, I really only use A colon hover, just so that when I hover over a link, it gives me a nice effect of a hover change, and that's all I need. Different formats for margin, padding, representation. So let's first look at the left side. When we say margin 5 pixels, imagine that we're applying margin to a div, for example. Think of the div again as a box. So margin 5 pixels would mean I want 5 pixels around the entire div, from the top, from the right, from the bottom, and from the left. So it applies to all 4 edges. When we say margin colon a value, space, another value, so 5 pixels, for example, space 10 pixels, for example, it means that I would like 5 pixels applied to the top and bottom and 10 pixels applied to the left and right. And this is exactly what we did with margin 0 auto. When we said margin 0 auto to center block elements within a page or within other block elements, the first value 0 means from top and bottom I want 0 space, and from left and right I wanted auto, and auto means centering. So that's what margin 0 auto stood for. When we say margin a value space, another value space, a third value, it applies to the top, left and right, bottom. So 5 pixels is for the top, 20 pixels is for the left and right, and 7 pixels is for the bottom. When we say margin value, 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 4 values separated by spaces, it applies to the top, right, bottom, left. Think of a clockwise application of the values. These two might be slightly difficult to memorize when we're beginners with CSS. The first one is very easy and the last one is very easy because it's clockwise. But once you get used to it, you will use these middle two very much. The same applies for padding. So margin and padding, think of it as the same thing, even though there's a major difference between the two, but as far as applying values, it's the same concept. We can also choose to be more specific and say margin top 5 pixels, margin right 10 pixels, margin left 7 pixels, instead of using this shorthand method. Let's talk about inheritance. Under Firefox Preferences Content and Safari Preferences Appearance, obviously Chrome has its own location too, are the default font and size that the browser is using. If the font and size are not specified in the CSS, the text in our web page inherits those specified in the browser's default. Let's see what that means. Let's say I have a P here, And that P is just saying web design is cool. Okay, let me save this and open this page in the browser. And obviously I have my box model, and under that I have web design is cool. So how come this is this font family is Verdana and it's 16 pixels? I know it by looking at it because I've looked at this so much earlier for years and years. Now, how come the browser knows that it should display Verdana and 16 pixels? Okay, if you go to Firefox, Preferences, under Content are the default font and font size of the browser. And that's where Verdana is specified and 16 pixels. If I change Verdana to something else like, let's see, Arial, the typeface changes. If I change the size from 16 to 28, it becomes bigger, and so forth. There you go. So just so you know. So unless the size of the font is specified in CSS, so unless I go to CSS and say P, right, P font size 12 pixels, for example, if that is not mentioned, then what the browser does is it goes to what's specified in the browser's preferences and displays that. Okay, so this is the idea of inheritance. Let me just go ahead and set this back to 16. And we'll go back to our slide. In case of nested elements, the child sometimes inherits properties from its parent, like font, font size, color, and so forth, unless its own are specified in CSS. So let's say we have a P element that is nesting as span. If the span has nothing specified as far as font size, but the P has, the span is going to inherit the font size from the P from its parent. Finally, check W3C for a list of all the properties, including their inheritance. So go ahead and check out this link. I already have it open right here. And basically, if you type in that URL or you copy it and paste it, it's a list of properties. This is a list of CSS properties, and it talks about all of these properties in detail, including the inheritance, the values, and so on. So by all means, check out this page.